We're live.
Welcome everyone to our city council meeting for Monday, June 24th. Oops, let me try this again. Welcome everybody to the city council meeting for June 24th. If we can have a roll call, Madam Clerk, to establish quorum.
David Avanzino. Steve Holofield.
Here.
Harry Meyer.
Here.
Susan Girding. Here. Terry McClung.
I am here.
Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I get a motion to approve the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second. Any additions, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor of the agenda as submitted, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Get a motion to approve the minutes for June 10th.
I move to approve the minutes for June 10th.
Second.
Mr. Meyer made the motion to approve the minutes, and Mr. McClung seconded. Any additions, corrections from anyone? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so moved. We do have some vacancies in the planning, CAPC, and under parks, we nominated Ruth Mitchell at the last meeting, so she's up for a vote.
I move we appoint Ruth Mitchell to Parks, position 7.
Second.
All right. Mr. Holyfield made the motion, Mr. McClung seconded. Any comments? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. All right, this will bring us up to our public comments. Please limit your time to 3 minutes.
Ferguson Stewart, 7 Harvey Road. I'm here as a resident, but also as a commissioner. And as a commissioner, I was part of the ordinance for creation of 2332 for the parking ordinance. So, but as a resident, the tax money that we spent 6 months on developing that parking ordinance,
Thank you, sorry. Was really instrumental, and we spent a lot of money on it, but it was also a test case. So I wish you wouldn't throw it out. That was our first area to do, and we want to do other areas, but it's also was one of the first things that the constituents in Eureka Springs asked us to do. So it's an election year, guys, so please don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Thank you.
Hello, Brian Wright, 4119 East Van Buren, Kettle Campground. I wanted to have an opportunity to respond to some of the questions that council members had at the last meeting pertaining to my property. I know that Mr. Wiley said multiple employees came to look at the well, but it was only one, and all he did was mark the water line and ask where the well was located. He certainly wasn't there to mark for the fiber optic line, since digging had already begun on the opposite side of the street 6 days prior on the 9th of May. As far as the state inspection on June 11th, Jacob didn't show up, so there was no third-party witness sent by the city. Fortunately, I asked Mr. Avanzino to attend, and he was able to witness that it was nothing more than our normal 3-year inspection, ensuring that the state's records were accurate and everything was as it should be. Again, we have no issue doing as the council requested back in January of having a meter installed on our well to measure sewer output. Thank you.
Linda McBride. Tonight you will vote to revoke ordinance number 2332. You made the decision at your last meeting with no input from your planning commission because members, especially the former chair, didn't know residential parking was on the agenda and would be discussed. The respectful and professional action from the mayor's office would have been notification to the planning commission members. Established by state legislation, The Planning Commission primary function is to plan. And let me tell you something, this commission planned, and they planned hard. They had 3 workshops. They had meeting after meeting after meeting. They gathered the information. They talked to 2 former owners of the Bridgeford House who gave them a map of where they park with 9 cars or 7 cars. The parking is there. Months of gathering this information. Yet when it came for discussion at your last meeting, you did not opt for any of the planning commissioners to be there. If the former chair had been here, they could have answered questions. Also, when they presented that ordinance to y'all, they told you up front it would probably need some tweaking, it would need some work, but give it a try. It was to take effect September the 24th, and the residential parking stickers started being handed out in August of 2023. Imagine my surprise when I got my permits and I went over and looked at the Bridgeford House owners, and they had residential parking stickers and hang tags. This ordinance was sabotaged from the very first not to succeed because of what happened. Y'all need to know about it, but time constraints won't let me explain it to you. It finally started being enforced just a few weeks ago. You have a chief who's willing to enforce it, but y'all are not. You're not willing to even try. Just throw it in the water. At the last meeting, a comment was made about resident homes. They knew they had no parking when they bought the house. Well, guess what? When the buyers bought the Bridgeford House, they knew exactly what parking was required, and they knew they had to have it to park. They have to have a parking spot for each room. And I FOIA'd all this mess back in August, and let me tell you, the attorney did not, with all those things, well, I'll get to that if y'all want to hear it. This is all explained in ordinance number 1816, how much parking you have to have. So tonight, you're going to revoke this ordinance. The city attorney even asked y'all at the last meeting, do you want to make changes? And the answer was no, just do away with it. I got one more page. You didn't even try. You didn't even try. So you had complaints about tickets. You always have complaints about tickets. You should at least try. That's what good city government is. Tonight, when you vote to revoke ordinance number 2332, let me tell you what you're doing. You're doing away with ordinance number 1816, requiring bed and breakfast to have parking on site. Because when you do away with this, you're giving the Bridgeford House parking on the street, and every other bed and breakfast in town deserve it. You're making sure they have parking, and you're forgetting everything else. Thank you.
Good evening. Pat Matsoukas, 5 Mountain Street. Couple things. I don't know when it became okay for everybody to decide that this parking was theirs. You go along Armstrong. I don't know, are these people paying taxes to have these spots that say guest parking only? Do they own this? In front of the new deli, there are tables on the outside of the fence. Knowing the accident at what I call the Spaghetti Mill Bridge, I'm terrified if those guests sitting outside that fence line get hit one night. And by the way, does the restaurant own that land outside the restaurant? All over town, people are just being piggy about space. And I say, if you're paying taxes on that space, you have the right to be there. If you don't, then it belongs to the city, and enough. I'm terrified if somebody gets hit down there in front of the new deli. I see guests out there drinking, having a good time. I'm not opposed to a good time. I don't want to see them get hit. God knows we've had a lot of accidents lately. I want to talk about commissions. The other day, some of us witnessed this fiasco to CAPC, which brings me to the point, how did a CAPC commissioner use a CAPC computer to send off what he wanted to send to people all over town? It wasn't a CAPC commission decision, it was his, and his alone. And he should be held accountable for it. I'm very disappointed by this entitlement. I don't understand how this works. I also say that I am totally against any more commissioners living outside of town. If they do not collect the tax in their business, if they don't live in town, I don't want them. We should not have them. They're spending our money. They don't live in town. They don't answer to anybody in town, in theory. So where is that getting us? We all have to be in this together, or just make everybody an at-large commissioner and call it a day. I feel for Linda in this parking thing, it breaks my heart that they worked so hard and so long on this and you just blew them off on it. I hope you'll reconsider that. I'm very against a permanent entertainment district at East Mountain. If that property changes hands, if something happens in the future, that property will stay an entertainment district. I am not opposed to a conditional use permit going from owner to owner for always being reviewed, but for long-term usage, I've seen what's happened in this town. I don't think we should give it to them. I don't even think we should have an entertainment district, period, but whatever. What else is? Yeah, let's see, entertainment, there's so many things you can go through in this with you guys. I wish that we would have public workshops where people could come in, you give them 15 minutes and say, tell me what's going on here. I recently went to a parks workshop where I was not very nice, but I don't know where else to go to give my voice. They made it very clear that I could not speak at the workshop. I get 3 minutes at their parks meeting. And I'm thinking, why have a workshop? Thank you.
Is there anybody else for public comments? All right, hearing none, we will continue on with our unfinished business. Get a motion to discuss sewer updates.
So moved.
Second.
All right. We have an engineer from McClellan and Simon here to talk about our sewer plant and sewer updates.
Good evening. Thanks for making some time for us again this evening. The quick update on the rate study.
You want to introduce yourself?
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Zane Lewis with McClellan Consulting Engineers. Good to see everybody again. A quick update on the two primary things we're helping you guys with, which includes the wastewater plant upgrades and the water and sewer utility rate study. We had our weekly progress meeting with our rate study sub-consultant, Utility Financial Solutions, last week. We're going to have another one this week. But we're basically gathering the bits and pieces of information that he needs to be able to put all of the data into his cost models. And so we talked in great detail about depreciation of assets, riveting stuff. And so Simon and I are going to get to take a little field trip, and he's going to show me all of your existing sewer lift stations, your existing water booster pump stations, and the water tanks. And we're going to do a brief assessment, not an in-depth assessment, but we're trying to determine the replacement cost of these assets. And so what that will relate to eventually is a conversation once we're ready to bring you guys some sample rate adjustments and talk about what those mean with how aggressive does the city want to be in pursuing your ultimate goals. And so aggressive in this case means how much money do you want to spend every year on what will be ongoing projects like repair of the sewer collection system. That's not something that is going to be able to be accomplished in one project. It would be way beyond the cost, that would be able to be achieved or appropriate. And so we like to think about that as a project that will happen over a course of 10, 15, 20 years. And so once we determine sort of a laundry list of major items, then we can take that total bucket and divide it up across that number of years, and that'll reflect into the rates on how much we need to have in our cash flow available to do those projects every year. A little bit different from that would be the wastewater plant, which, again, is I think what we're looking at more specifically in your packet today. We have two, they're basically payback schedules, and they're, developed by us. These are not from the actual lenders, but they're comparing the two different federal regulatory agencies that we're looking at getting a loan from. The one we've spoken to you about most is the ANRD, or Arkansas Natural Resource Division. And that one, particularly in the late part of the winter, was a more attractive loan because they, at that time, still had some available grant monies that have since all been allocated to other projects. This year's amount, they will do another allocation of monies later this year for 2025. So there is a chance we could get in on that. Since then, we've come across the USDA program, which is the other alternative, and it has a lower interest rate. They have an optional longer repayment period, which we would not recommend, but is out there. And so looking at that lower monthly payment and lower total payoff, the only thing that the USDA loan does not offer is the option to use the construction manager that we have talked about, which is like an accelerated getting into the work on site. And so with the USDA loan, we would be required to go all the way through detailed design, which is traditional construction, and do a public advertisement and bid for the project. And so, talking with Simon and the mayor and some staff, we don't see either offer as bad. To be clear, neither of these agencies have given us an official offer yet. We are still in the midst of the application process, and so these are anticipated terms. Obviously, if these terms change dramatically, we'll come back to you and update you. But these are the terms that they print on their websites that you guys could go and check out if you wanted to. And so, we felt like it was appropriate, since we talked so much about the more expensive loan, that we bring you both and get feedback from y'all on what you'd like to see us pursue.
Now, I see a lot of you guys looking with confusion at your sheets. You guys have actually an extra sheet in there that shows a 40-year payoff. So what we're looking at is a 20-year payoff, because studies have shown about every 20 years you have to do upgrades to your plan again. So we're looking at doing a 20-year payoff. So please disregard the 40-year payoff sheet and focus on the 20.
Thank you, Simon. Yes, sir.
Okay, there is no prepayment penalty with the USDA.
Not that we're aware of. That's one of the things we're trying to confirm right now.
So why not go the 40-year term, and if you got more, apply it to the principal. You can do it at any time.
Our understanding is that would be a very
that's what
desirable
it says here.
way to proceed. Yeah.
So I think the 40-year plan is a better plan, and when we have the money, then we can, just like we're trying to do now, is pay things off early. So, that's prudent.
Yeah.
We can be prudent.
We definitely saw advantages to the USDA loan, and again, with that early payoff option, it does seem very desirable. That, I guess to follow up on that, we are much less deep into the application process of the USDA loan, so we will update you again with those terms, as we get deeper into it once we find out more information.
Yeah, and 5% versus 3 3.25. That's
USDA also
a lot.
has, yeah, they do, and USDA also offers a interest rate reduction if the community qualifies for low income, which we understand that Eureka Springs is very close to that margin. And there may even be an opportunity or desire to do sort of a project-specific confirmation of that data, where we would basically mail out surveys to local residents, and then depending on the results, we could even bring that interest rate down further.
That'd be great.
That'd be amazing.
So, as far as the manager is concerned, we don't know if we can get a manager paid for with this yet.
Correct. The USDA program seems to be more strictly following federal guidelines, and there is no current federal nexus in Arkansas for using a construction manager. The construction manager option is a state law, and so ANRD being a state agency, that is apparently why they are willing to go with that option. To your point about the construction manager, we in January, February, were very uncertain about how aggressive Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality was going to be on mandating that the community spend money to make things happen. From what we do know, it appears they have been satisfied with our responses to their previous questions and comments. Terry and Simon are taking care of the plant. Terry continues to provide weekly updates to DEQ with an email every Friday evening. And so the hard work is paying off, and they appear to be giving us some space to manage our future, our destiny. At that point, going through the normal design process to advertise and bid, presumably late this year or early next year, appears to be a perfectly acceptable schedule to them.
Well, personally, I don't want to see the project without a manager because it can go upside down. Shoddy work, if somebody isn't watching, things can happen.
Either of the projects would have inspection on them, so they would still be inspected and held to the standards that are provided by the engineering firm. So
that's one of the things that sometimes can get onto the chopping block when budgets are a major issue is full-time inspection. But we definitely have the capacity to provide full-time inspection. And some of the issues that we know have plagued the previous expansion are things that we are readily able to catch with our on-site staff.
Zane, this is Susan Grooney. I'm on Zoom. I'm sorry.
Sounds great.
I have a couple of questions on this.
Yes, ma'am.
So we did talk about a project manager. So we may or may not have one to oversee the project, correct?
So in previous conversations, we've talked about the construction manager project delivery, which is a particular form of contract oversight. There is still an option to hire a construction manager, third-party entity with a normal bid project. Typically, that would be additional funds, and so that could still be an option, but it may not be as traditional with a hard bid to have a third-party construction manager like with this other method. I don't know.
So there are options, is what you're saying.
There are, and we are still definitely trying to finalize all of those, but it does appear that the USDA loan being directly from the federal agency will not allow the state law of the construction manager. Part of what the construction manager does that we talked about previously is it allows for the early procurement of major items of equipment, and it allows for basically the contractor entity to start locking in things that have long lead times on pricing. And so what we're really talking about, I think, is time and cost, but there are other ways that we can make sure that a bid, an advertised and publicly bid project can have checks and balances on those costs, including specific requirements if there are proposed adjustments in costs for change orders, as the mayor's very familiar with in his line of work. But just because we have to go to the bid does not mean that it's going to necessarily cost more money.
Okay. That makes sense. So the longevity of these improvements, I kind of heard that we are looking at a loan, maybe 20 years, maybe, as Terry mentioned, why not extend it out to 40? And did I also hear Simon say that these improvements with any working facility, like our waste station, I guess what I'm getting at is, once we do these improvements, are we going to have to do improvements again in 20 years? Because I kind of hate to see a 40-year loan out there when we may need to now redo things in another 20 years and then have another loan, or you pay the other loan off. I think it needs to be tighter. So when we look at replacing everything that needs to be replaced there, the longevity of it, or the shelf life of it, whatever you want to call it, are we looking at 20 years? Once this is done, and not only are we looking at 20 years, but in this loan that will go back, I'm assuming, to the citizens of Eureka Springs, what is the cost to the user over that time for these improvements?
Right.
That's kind of a lot right there.
Well, no, that's a great overview of a few questions that I think all tie together. And to your point, we would generally only support or recommend, from McClellan's perspective, a loan duration that is equal to the useful life of the product. And so in this case, you know, we do believe that 20 years is more appropriate, but to the point of having options of longer payoff that then you can choose to pay off earlier, that's sort of, I think, the political side that we're really genuinely asking for council's input and direction and leadership on. But as far as the work at the plant, the concrete structures, you know, that are already there, that are mostly to be reused, we would say those are a 50-plus year useful life. And then the pumps and motors, you know, those would be closer to the 20-year useful life. And so part of what we've already accomplished, or are kind of at the tail end of, is the work that Simon and Terry have been performing, and I've been sort of advising from the side on to replace existing broken equipment, get it back into service properly, and have a spare on the shelf so that if we do have another catastrophic failure, whether it's from a lightning strike or something else, that we're not having to wait the lead time to get a part ordered. And so everything that we're proposing as a part of the larger project would also follow that same thread, that we would expect a minimum of a 20-year useful life out of it. And then depending on exactly what it is, there may be some spare parts that would be recommended to have on the shelf, or there may be a interim useful life where, you know, at year 10, we know we have to do a pump rebuild, and so we've budgeted for that.
Perfect. Okay.
Very good.
So this budget, includes spare parts?
It does. It does. I mean, I think that part of what the original budget was supposed to include, Simon has already replaced some of. So technically, we're working in the correct direction on that budget, rather than adding things to it. Part of that has also been that we've had no choice. We've had to repair pumps that are out because that's part of the treatment process. So the longer we wait, the more work we'll have to do to make sure the plant keeps functioning. Yes, sir.
Well, I just, you know, again, back to the 40-year payout, in doing that in lean times, that would free up, you know, $120,000 plus, you know, that could go to other projects or do repairs or whatever that we might need the money for. I mean, it's just, you know, if we got it to apply to that, I think we should apply to that. I'm very set on that idea, but I like to have the options. I like to, you know, a little bit of flexibility, because you don't know I don't know what the future's going to hold.
What I love the most about this is that when we are ready for Dan Kasbaum, who is our accountant that's performing the detailed calculations for the rate study, when he's ready to come and present to y'all for the first time, it's going to be beautiful, because some of this is all going to kind of come together. The real question that makes sense to me that you're asking right now has to do, I think, with the overall rate study, because yes, we're talking about $100,000 a year, but when we look at the overall budget between the two utilities, you're going to see that that is a drop in the bucket. And so we're talking about a much bigger budget. And then, fully informed, I think you guys will be able to make that decision about what you want to do with each of the $100,000.
Does something major like that, in that, say, what you're referring to, that we may have price increases, that could be pretty hefty?
We're not right now anticipating another COVID experience where we saw wastewater and water treatment equipment double in price in 2 years. That has since leveled in terms of, you know, the normal anticipated cost increases annually have not made that even worse yet.
I'm referring cost increase to our consumers.
The way that the rates that the American Water Works Association rate making guide want you to make, they would either be increased annually some incremental amount to try to keep up with inflation, or you would have some sort of an every 3 to 5 years you would look at it really hard and make a decision. That would be an automatic. Yeah, 5 years, thank you. So you're gonna have to show over 5 years the anticipated need and then what you want to do to meet that need over those 5 years.
A lot of that has to do with what the water district is charging us for water. It goes up every year.
That's absolutely true. And so we will do an anticipated rate increase in the model, and then that'll be adjusted as we get the actual rate increase. But no, that is a very real thing that you guys do not have any control.
Yeah, and that's what concerns me, that if we do this, when we do this study, and if it comes out to, you know, for increases that, you know, I'm not going to say drastic, but I mean, that could be as such, it might be something that we have to have the public vote on. I don't know. Is that, I mean,
We'll have to vote on any rate increase.
Huh?
We have to vote on any rate increase.
But can it, as a referendum, or you mean us?
Us, the city council.
Yeah. Well, if it's something drastic, you know, it's almost something that I think we might have to look to the public for. I don't know. I don't know if that's done.
So what the procedure that I'm familiar with that we'll walk through together is that we will present to you a few different options, and we'll try to explain to you the assumptions behind those options. Okay. And so there'll be at least one, and likely as many opportunities as you guys want to decide what we want the rate assumptions to be. And then here are 2 or 3 options of how to fulfill those needs. Okay. And when I say those options, it'll be, do you want to do more on year 1, or do you want to stretch it out over 3 years in terms of increasing the rates annually? I've yet to see one that actually ended up showing that they recommended reducing rates, but part of that is even just the cost of energy going up annually.
Okay, we'll just cross that bridge when we get to it.
And we're still stuck with the rules that pertain to
That's correct.
to water and sewer districts, and it has to be separate. It's not like Parks Department. You know, we can eliminate the Parks Department. We can't eliminate Public Works. We can't eliminate water and sewer.
That's right.
And we can't, we have to meet the law.
That's right. That's right.
That's a business, unlike the rest of the city. That is a business that we have to.
Which is part of, I think, my understanding of the goal of the Act 605 is that this is really not political when it comes to what it costs the utility to get the clean drinking water to the customer at the tap, and to make sure that what we put into the creek is compliant with the regulations. There are definitely ways that we're reviewing intensely to make those incremental costs as low as possible. Sewer costs can sometimes be dramatically impacted by the cost of chemicals if the biological treatment process is not working correctly. So things like that definitely can impact them, but we haven't found any red flags so far that are going to save $1 million a year on operations.
Well, we ran into that a few years ago. Chemical costs went up down there at the plant that we had to deal with.
Great questions.
Anyone else? Zane, I'm assuming what you've given us is for our information
That's correct.
to digest, and you will come back later on.
Yes, sir.
And look and give us some other information and recommendations.
Hopefully by then I'll have some firm information, at least from A&RD as well, of these terms. So.
Yeah. This is something for the council to consider and think about. So
the only thing I'm worried about is if we accept the 40-year thing, there's a bunch of us here at this table that won't be around, and whoever's mayor and council later on might be not as responsible for making the payments right.
I think those are arguments that we can address when we get to it.
Of course.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else on this issue?
Great.
Simon, do you have anything on our water remediation?
And we are looking at cost savings, things we could do at the plant that'll be cost savings for us. One of our biggest uses at the plant is water. Through our the biosolids and mixing it with the polymer to create our solids that we dispose of. We're looking at trying to build a recycler, if you will, where effluent flow from the sewer plant is reused back into to the treatment process to process those solids, which would cut down the water bill dramatically at the sewer plant. So there's things that we're looking at that'll also lower the cost of day-to-day operations, if you will. And plus technology is so much better now than what it was when that plant was last remodeled, so that, our electric bill is bound to go down,
So the effluent, or what's treated that's going out into the creek could be used back to recycle and help with the solids.
That's correct.
Sounds like a good idea.
Anybody else?
That's great, thank you.
Mr. McClung, you have something?
Yeah, I'm trying to formulate it here, though. I'll get back to it if it gets slick. Yeah, next time.
All right, Simon, thank you. Zane, thank you very much for coming over and presenting this information. What else? The water sewer update, water leak remediation?
Yeah.
Okay. That's where I thought we were, but all right, motion to discuss.
So moved.
Second.
All right.
So we've only had a couple of leaks that were just natural causes, I guess, more or less, in the last few weeks. The first one's over there at 2100 Van Buren, East Van Buren, at the antique shop. And the other one was down on Thomas Drive, and we fixed that one already. These other big leaks that are happening, it tends to be always on the holiday or on a Friday night, have been contractor damage to our infrastructure. I've been receiving a lot of calls, people stopping by the office, wondering why I'm not warning them that the water's going to be out. The truth is, I just don't know it's going to be out because I don't know that they're going to hit the water line. So as soon as we find the water lines damaged, it's pretty much all hands on deck trying to get it fixed. We post it on social media and try to get the word out the best we can, but we're kind of busy taking care of the leak at that time. So that's about all I have on water leak remediation. I'll stand for any questions.
Question,
Yes,
are these contractors, are they paying for the leaks they've created?
So the leak that happened last Wednesday night during the holiday was their fault, and they actually fixed that leak. I had staff come in to help with that, but the rest of them are just water lines that we are just unaware of. What I found through the history of Eureka Springs, they've ran service lines across the road from where the main is, and then they parallel it to the road to feed other people on the other side of the road instead of making them put in their own service line. And that's been kind of a big issue because we just don't know that that's been done. And the rest of the hits have been results of that, just unknown lines that are over there. When we get to the point where we have this Act 605 stuff done and we're looking at improving our infrastructure, our water and sewer, water line will be on one side of the road, sewer line will be on the other, and then 90 degrees off those water lines or sewer lines will be the services for the houses or businesses, and that'll help prevent that in the future.
What about the water meter upgrades? Are we everything up to snuff on that?
We're super close. We're super close. Eugene Darby's been working really hard to make sure that the ones that we've had errors out of, that we're getting those corrected. We still have about 90 meters, I think, approximately in the city that haven't been updated to the new meters. We've got one location with 4 of them that Crawdad Plumbing has been working on to replace those meters. We're going to have to shut down. Unfortunately, the areas that were already affected by the water shutdowns from this construction project here in the near future, go ahead and replace those meters, and we're going to put new valves in and stuff to make sure that doesn't become an issue again where we have to kill the entire main to replace the meter. But we're working on them and trying to get them knocked out as we can.
I'd like to make it clear for the public and the rest of the council that I've learned from Jacob is that if an apartment building is paying for the water for all the apartments, they don't need to put a meter on every apartment, do they?
That's right. That's the exception of the rule. So if you have an apartment and the owner is paying for the water for the entire unit, then they don't have to have individual meters. If the renters are paying for the water, they have to have their own individual meter. They can't share their water with anybody else. That's correct.
But anybody else? Any other questions?
Actually, I think they came up with a trash collection, the bags. So the apartment complex, if the owner's paying for 1 meter, are they only charged for trash for like one person?
So it depends on what the apartment complex is. There's different trash rates for commercial versus residential, and I think the apartments are considered more commercial than residential, and they usually have a roll-off dumpster, and they pay extra for that.
Okay, thank you.
They do pay extra for.
Yeah, that's correct.
All right, anybody else? Any other good questions? All right, Simon, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, brings us up to our next item of unfinished business is an ordinance to authorize creation of permanent entertainment district at Pine Mountain Village. Get a motion to discuss.
Move to discuss.
Second.
Our last council meeting, we had some questions that came up regarding this ordinance, and I think with the boundaries and how it was going to be handled. And we asked that the applicant, Marshall Johnson, come up. I think Marshall's here, and be able to discuss some of this. I know in your packet you've got another survey in your outlined in yellow that shows what the outline of the entertainment district would be. And basically, Marshall, I'm going to let you explain it. I don't want to put words in your mouth here.
Yeah, basically the property is, most of it's wooded, so the developed shopping center, the outline would be the theater, the parking lot basically, and then the little stage area that we have added this last season. Directly behind it we would have, like a fence. But other than that, it's, we're trying to enhance the property with some of the events that are already there, the car shows, and create kind of a destination and try to fill some of those spaces and create some more energy. So, but the developed property is really the property line that we're requesting for the entertainment district. So.
I think there was also a concern or a question about people leaving the property with drinks.
With drinks?
Yes.
We've already had multiple temporary entertainment district permits and events, and 0 issues. There'll be signage, just like any now leaving, no alcoholic beverages past the entertainment district. So, we've done it, and there's been 0 issues so far. So, but we would manage it, we would police it, being private property.
All right, Mr. McClung.
The perimeter of the entertainment district, as you propose here, will include the parking area.
Yes, the outline, the yellow outline is
what we're
proposing.
Really how you going to stop people from getting in their car and leaving with a drink in their hand?
We've had multiple events.
Yes.
Temporary permit, and this is the outlined area that we've had on those permits. Obviously, it's illegal to get in your car and leave with alcohol at any time. So, we can't police every single person, but we obviously policed it pretty good for the multiple events we've tried. So,
Marshall, I haven't been to a lot of the temporary entertainment districts, but I've been to a couple of them, and you always had a rope or something across from like the Harley shop across to the used to be the Chamber of Commerce building, and then everything outside of that was parking. So you couldn't carry a beer into the parking
for
lot.
Bikes, Blues, and Barbecue, we've had the whole parking lot, so they could walk around with where the vendors were at, which is out there.
Oh, we didn't get a new map for that.
So, well.
Mr. Holyfield.
Well, the temporary entertainment districts, when they're downtown, there's parking all up and down the street. People get in the car then and drive off. So, I mean, that's an issue. But I'd like to ask the police chief, I think he's still here, if he would tell us if there's been any problems within the temporary entertainment districts or not.
Chief, you want to come up?
Feedback. And also, I'm concerned about what Ms. McBride said about, is this, once this is passed, is this like forever? If the property's sold, does it go with the property, or is it,
It's permanent entertainment district.
there's no expiration date or nothing?
Not in the ordinance, not the way it's written.
Police chief, do you know of any problems, any of these?
We've not had anytime there's been anything happen in any of the temporary entertainment districts, everybody that's had the permit's been super cooperative. They're always easy to get a hold of. Anytime something happens, they call us, we come take care of the problem, whether it's medical or anything. There haven't been any issues that I would point to.
Have you heard of this gentleman's property here?
We have. He's had, I believe, multiple since I've been working here, and there have been maybe 2 or 3 bad actors we've had to remove, and it's always been a pleasant experience. No problems.
All right, thank you, sir.
Question?
Yes. Yes, Ms. Gordon.
Thank you. So does this permanent entertainment district, did we talk about times yet? Like the times that it'll be open, and with the noise, is there a conflict with the noise ordinance that we currently have? Or does that not apply?
No, I think it does apply. Marshall, you want to address it?
Yeah, I think that we set the time to end when the noise, I think the noise, what is it, 10 or 11 o'clock?
11.
Yeah, whatever the noise, it states in here, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m., which would be when the noise ordinance, I guess, is.
It ends at 10 p.m., the noise ordinance.
10, okay. So an hour after.
And 7 days a week?
Yeah, that's what it's, a permanent entertainment district.
Okay. It could be a Eureka permanent. Just kidding.
Mr. Almanzino?
Yeah, my first question, I guess, is for Forrest. Does the vote that our residents took regarding permanent entertainment districts supersede this request?
No. No, that was a different permanent, that was a different ordinance, different permanent.
So it's not a blanket
No.
entertainment district?
No, it was
Okay.
for a specific area downtown.
Okay.
And that got revoked.
Okay. And my second question, I guess is for Marshall and for us, is have your surrounding neighbors been polled about this request? Or have they been polled?
Not to my knowledge. The neighbors in the front would be obviously businesses. We've got the back road, the
Yeah, I'm talking about the residents.
behind us.
you.
Yeah.
How
Well,
many-
actually, there is one that is pro for it. He lives right behind us and has a place right next to us. But, you know, he's for it, so.
And I think the first thing, correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Clerk, but the ordinance reads 11 p.m., that would have to be corrected to 10 p.m.?
He'll have to stop playing music at 10. I don't know about, he could have the entertainment district till 11, but he'll have to stop playing music at 10 unless he applies for the one-time event permit that goes to midnight.
And
Any
this
other
is really
questions?
intended for events. I mean, this isn't going to be an everyday thing. I mean, there's not going to be a need to have.
Yeah, I mean, I completely understand that, but if we were to approve this ordinance, it pretty much gives you blanket to do what you want 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And I understand that you won't do it 7 days a week, but with this ordinance, the way it's written, we wouldn't have a choice to retaliate if you were to do something 7 days a week, 12 hours a day.
But they only permit one temporary permit for the whole city. So if 2 people have an event and you don't get a permit, then you can't get an entertainment district. Is that correct?
That would be it.
So if we have multiple events and somebody else has an event, it's the luck of the draw who gets there first. So it's kind of set up, you know.
Yeah, there's only one temporary entertainment district allowed at one time. But you've
But would
got
that
every one of
matter?
them you applied for.
What's that?
Ms. Greening, what'd you say?
Would that matter if he's permanent?
No, I don't believe so. They'd still be eligible for temporary permits, entertainment permits. It wouldn't rule out having, a permanent entertainment district would not rule out temporary. Mr. McClung?
Madam Clerk, I assume you're trying to verify that right now. Thank you.
Marshall, how big a property do you have there?
The total property? The total is right at about 40 acres. The permitted area, I would say, is just the developed land. There's probably maybe 5 of it, under 5 acres, including the theater side.
Marshall, I do have another question for you. I can't really tell in your, in the survey that you've submitted, but where is the observation tower? Is it within this?
Yeah, the observation tower would be in the center.
Almost right in the middle.
Of the island there.
So it's no temporary entertainment district application for the same date or within a time frame within 24 hours of the same date.
For a temporary.
For temporary, correct.
Any other questions? No. All right. If there are no other questions, is there a motion? All right. Since there's no motion,
I'm not done yet. I'm thinking.
Mr. McClung? What?
Yeah. I would be more inclined to amend the existing ordinance on that, on concurrent conditional use, or not conditional use, but district.
Temporary entertainment districts?
Temporary entertainment district, if there was a need where I could see that there could be a need where they could be in more than one location.
We might have to check because I think that's bound by state law. Is that right, Kim? Yeah. That's state law, so we can't change that ordinance.
You can only have...
For temporary entertainment districts?
I believe so. We can research that after the...
I would like to do that, because I'm not inclined to give the blanket, because I think it's good to have that, have it presented. We're not going to turn them down. We never have, and I can't imagine anybody, that follows us would do so. But I think it's important that we maintain that. But if there is a conflict, like he's talking about, where, running concurrently, then that's what I would like to look at. I don't want to vote on this.
You want to make a table this?
Yeah, can we do that till the next meeting?
To table.
Yeah, I make a motion that we table this to our next meeting and get more information.
Second.
I got a motion to table and a second by Steve, Mr. Holyfield. All right. Any further discussion on tabling it? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
All right. I think we have a 4-1 vote. Is that correct? Mr. Amazino, did you vote?
Yes.
Okay. All right, 4-1. All right, so we will table this until our next meeting and do some research on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. And I guess, Mr. Johnson, you might as well come back up here, because I think what we've got is a resolution for a temporary entertainment district. It's our next item of business. Get a motion to discuss.
So moved.
Second.
All right. We have a resolution here for temporary entertainment district for the operations at the Mustang Show. I'm not sure what the date is on that.
They moved it to this, the 6th and the 7th, or the
July
7th.
6th,
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a Saturday.
And in the same location, the same?
Yeah, it's the same location.
All right. Any discussion, Mr. McClung?
Yeah, I make a motion that we read the resolution.
Sign the number?
and sign the number, read it for passage. So I do.
Second.
All right, Mr. McClung made the motion and Mr. Avanzino seconded. Further discussion? Mr. Myers?
I think that they should go back to what they did when they first had their first entertainment districts, and that's having that rope across there where nobody can come out of that area to the parking lot with a beer or a drink.
Well, the entire parking for that event is cars parked everywhere. So the intent is for us to be able to have the entertainment district where people can walk around and view all the cars and still have a beverage, like they did for the Bikes Blues.
Well, I didn't know that you changed the boundaries.
Well,
Bikes
the
Blues,
boundaries,
when you had your first
and I might be
Bikes
wrong
Blues.
about the boundaries of what they did the first time, the last time as well. So we would have to look that up. So I'm not 100% sure that that was the case.
Yeah, there was that rope across there. The first Bikes and
So
Blues.
that'd be like a beer garden versus versus an entertainment district.
Temporary entertainment district beer garden, what do you want to call it?
All right, any other comments? All right, we got a motion and a second. If there's no further comments, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
Again, 4-1 vote. All right. Mr.
Thank you.
Johnson, thank you.
Do you want to do a roll call vote since that's a resolution?
Yes.
Terry McClung,
Yes.
Harry Meyer,
No.
David Avanzino,
Yes.
Steve Holofield,
Yes.
Susan Gruning.
Yes.
Let me get that pulled up. Assigning resolution number 863. A resolution to authorize a temporary entertainment district and establishing standards for its operation for a Mustang Show. Whereas prior ordinances of the City of Eureka Springs, Arkansas allow creation and governance of temporary entertainment districts, and whereas an application has been made for a temporary entertainment district to be granted, and whereas the mayor and required department heads of the City of Eureka Springs, Arkansas have reviewed the application and found it appropriate to forward for City Council's consideration. Whereas the City Council of the City of Eureka Springs has made a comprehensive study of the application and its request. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Eureka Springs, Arkansas, Section 1, Purpose and Intent. The purpose of the entertainment district is to promote hospitality and tourism within the city and to highlight restaurant, nightlife, entertainment, and hospitality options for tourists. Section 2, Location. The temporary entertainment district shall be located at Pine Mountain Village, 5 acres of paved retail area. Section 3, dates and times hereby permitted Saturday, July 6, 2024, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. daily. Section 4, identification of participants. Those persons who wish to possess or consume from an open alcoholic beverage container within the district or enter the district from an alcoholic beverage permitted establishment with an open container shall first obtain a wristband, and beverages will be served in prepackaged cans. Section 4, permitted sound. Live amplified sound, including music, shall be permitted under the following restrictions. Music can only be performed and/or played from the hours of 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Stage or broadcast area shall be located within the fenced-in area. Sound produced shall not exceed 85 decibels. Application, state and local laws. All laws and ordinances not addressed herein shall remain in full force and effect. Section 7, removal of alcoholic beverage from the district by participants. It shall be unlawful for any person to remove an open alcoholic beverage container from any entertainment district. All unfinished quantities of alcoholic beverage must be properly disposed of prior to participants leaving the temporary entertainment district. Section 8, Police and Fire Authority. Nothing in this resolution prevents the Chief of the Eureka Springs Police Department or the Chief of the Eureka Springs Fire Department from suspending the operation hours of any entertainment district if necessary to comply with local, state, or federal law or fire codes, or if necessary to protect the public health, safety, and welfare.
Thank you, guys. All right, that brings us up to our next item of business, which is ordinance to revoke ordinance number 2332, Spring Street Residential Parking District. Get a motion to discuss.
So moved.
I'll second.
Mr. McClung made the motion, Mr. Myers seconded. Any discussion here? Mr. Meyer?
I think we should table this until we find out the disposition of the parking at the Bridgeford House. If Linda is correct and the Planning Commission had more information about the Bridgeford House parking than we did, and we did not get that information from them, then we were left out in the cold. And I believe we should look at that and make sure that they adhere to the rule, and that will help parking on Spring Street.
Mr. McClung?
Yeah, I believe as far as the Bridgeford House or any other tourist lodge that goes along through there, whenever they were approved on the get-go and any updates from that, they were required to have X number of parking spots, on site, not city property, but on site, not on the street. And so if they're not meeting that commitment, then they need to be notified that they have to, or they'll lose their permit. I mean, that's the way it's got to be. I mean,
I agree.
And so, I don't think we should hold this up, but there's no one that should get to circumvent. It was written up a certain way, and I know it's several owners down the, since it was originally done, but that's no excuse. It's written a certain way, and it needs to be followed.
I agree.
Now, we're not the policing agent on that. We set what the parameters are, and we approve it, and that's when it's set in stone, and that's what they need to do.
I was under the impression that they were somehow or another grandfathered, and they were non-conforming, whatever. But from what I understand, they've always been parking behind, and that will cure a lot of the ills. But I think that we can table this particular revocation and look at it and revamp it after we find out when the Bridgeford House has freed up all that parking on the street, so that our residences on that part of the street can park within at least 100 feet of their front door. And by the way, on Pine Street, there's cones. People
Let's keep it to Spring Street.
With cones.
Let's don't get sidetracked.
I'm afraid if we do away with this ordinance, we're just going to drop it. It's going to back to Bridgeford House can do whatever they want, and the neighbor's going to be unhappy about it. So I'm in favor of postponing until we have some solid plan about what's going on with Bridgeford House, and make sure we're taking care of everybody before we just do away with this.
All right, according to the ordinance, the Bridgeford House has 5 units. They're required to have 3 off-street parking spots. They're legally non-conforming use. The 3 off-street parking spots is so they have 2 on-street.
For guests.
It doesn't say guest. It doesn't say anything. It's just, they don't differentiate parking.
They
Five-
can't-
It would be
they've got
guests,
five- They
yes.
have 5 units.
Then they have
three-
2 people parking on the street who are residents there, owners.
They have 2 off, the grandfather clause is for 3 off-street parking spots. So they're required to have 3. And so they have 2 on-street parking.
Mr. City Attorney, what about this grandfathering thing? Can we change this so that we make
Oh, wait,
them-
what's your question? I'm sorry, Ms. Myers.
I would like the attorney to explain the grandfathering thing, because the last meeting he mentioned that we can change those rules. We can make the Bridgeford House do what all the previous owners did, according to the folks at planning, and they have to do what all the other bed and breakfasts do, and that's provide all their own parking. They've got the space behind the place.
There are legally non-conforming, and they're in our ordinance as such.
Yes,
We can-
that is the correct terminology. And of course, the city council has the ability to write ordinances and change them and so forth. So grandfather is a misnomer. It should not be used.
Question?
Motion to adjourn. Yes, Ms. Gurney.
So, just so I'm regurgitating this and understanding, what we're saying is Bridgeford House, prior to ordinance 2332, Bridgeford House was allowed to use 2 on-street parking, and there are 3 in the back. And that is for their 5 guest rooms and the manager, correct?
That's correct.
And now with ordinance 2332, they're asking for the 2 spaces that they normally would have, and then 1 for the manager. Is that correct?
This ordinance doesn't address that.
No.
Now, their agreement,
That's what I heard Sharon say
their
earlier.
agreement the last time was they wanted 2 off-street parking spots, and they would park behind the building, is what
Right.
the owner
right,
said the last time.
Right.
Mr. McClung?
Basically, what it is, it has been historically, is just the honor system. The bed and breakfast has the parking requirement in order to get their permit, whatever that was made to be at the time that they applied. Now, it might have been, there were less units and more added on, I don't recall, and that's why they had to, it seemed like they had to increase the parking. But I can't recall that specifically, so, that's just kind of thinking back. But I don't have anything to verify that. Planning Commission would have something along those lines where, as owners have changed, if they've changed the requirements, there would be record of that. But it's, as far as anybody else parking on it, it's all honor system. They've got 5 parking spots out back, but they could park everybody on the street. There's nothing that says that there's no one that's going to be enforcing that. There's nothing to enforce. You follow me?
Well, they could lose their CUP.
That, yes.
Mr. Alvenzino?
Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand, they did have 2 and they're now asking for 3 on the street, correct?
Still asking for 2.
2
'Cause
more.
I thought I remember something that they were asking for a parking spot for the manager or,
That's under the ordinance.
I believe what she was asking for, and I may be totally wrong, but I believe for the last time, she wanted 2 on-street parking spots.
Besides hers and her son's.
Just 2 on-street parking spots. Who it's to is irrelevant.
May I?
Mr. McClung?
Yeah, and that would be, David, if we had amended the ordinance instead of, dissolving it. that's what, whether it was 2 or 3, whatever it was, and I'm kind of like you, I think she was wanting 3, but yeah, that would be a modification to the ordinance.
Fergie, come up here. Please.
Ferguson Stewart, Vice Chair of the Planning Commission. Yes, sir.
So, fill us in on what you guys actually talked about with the Bridgeford House.
Okay. Well, I'm not 100% prepared, but the Bridgeford House, which is the definition we were given, that they were grandfathered, but what the original, my understanding was, is they had parking in the back, and they needed parking in the front, but it wasn't defined anywhere. And then when we put the parking ordinance in, they applied for 2 parking spots in the front and received placards. So that's what happened. So it was, I don't know if it was a mistake, an error, but we haven't been able to get any further on that to find out, because when this came up, we were waiting for you guys to decide before we tried to dig into it. But we probably need to either modify the ordinance in that particular area to suit that situation, or we need to review that particular CUP. But my guess would be it'd be easier to just modify the ordinance and allow an exemption for the Bridgeford House at the time. But that would be we have to go vote. The whole commissioners have to vote on that. So that would be my recommendation, to get it moving forward temporarily to get that done.
But did you find the information that the previous owners had all their people parked behind?
Well, that's what my understanding is, that the prior to Kyle, we had done this prior to Kyle, and the research that was done, that everything was in the back of that structure. There wasn't anything on the street.
That's all we need to know.
Okay. Is that it? Any other questions? Okay.
Is there a motion to table this?
All right, Linda, come on, please.
There's no motion.
It's your yard.
I've lived there in front of 4 owners to the Bridgeford House. The very first was Henry Thornton. On paper, it shows he had 9 spaces back there. The second owner, y'all knew him, was Sam and Jeff Philman. During all this work that planning's done, I contacted Sam, the wife. Henry nor Sam ever parked on the street, period. You can't legislate consideration of neighbors. But Sam sent a plat and showed where they parked 6 or 7 cars back there. The Bridgeford House owns all the land from behind them, their property line, all the way to Lee Pole's house. They own all the land back there. The Philmans they stacked 4 cars between their house and Virgil's house. There was 4 parking spaces. There's parking spaces behind Kings Road there. There is plenty of parking there. It comes down to a lot of things. But when they can park 7 cars on that street, 5 B&B, 5 rooms, and 2 for the owner, that's 7 cars they park out there. They have, I think that 3 and all that was a typo, and so does some of the Planning Commission members. There is land back there. Now, if you're going to start giving B&B spaces on the street, you messed up. And where it got messed up, where it could have worked, was when, on their own, Susan Harmon and Kyle gave them a parking pass and 2 guest passes. They did not talk to the rest of the Planning Commission. They talked to no one. Kyle doesn't have that authority, and Susan is the chair of a committee that only facilitates meetings. They messed it up from that point on. And I FOI'd it all. And Forrest, there's their communication. He advised them, do not do that. If they only have 3 parking spaces, then they need to cut down their 5 rentals and only have 3 rooms to rent. Right, Forrest? It's all written down. Maybe you disagree, get the FOIA. But the parking spaces are back there. It's been proven by previous owners. Mark Hicks was the first one. He bought it after the Philmans. And one day I said, Mark, can we talk about parking? And he said, if you say a word to me, I'm going to sue you for harassment. That's where it started with parking on the street. There's only 4 of us there. This is a small section of Spring Street. In 1997, the first ordinance came up, and they had a good one for Pine Street, Elk Street, every street. It passed on the first reading. The second reading, the police chief said he would no longer enforce it. If that had been done, you wouldn't have that problem today. At some point, parking in this situation, like on this small street, has got to be solved because the whole town is suffering. And before it started, who are you? Harry started to say it. Go down Pine Street. There's orange cones pulled everywhere for people are saving their parking spaces. It's all over town. We don't do that. We just would like to walk some.
All right, let's keep it on subject. We're on Spring Street, and we're talking about this ordinance.
Okay.
Please, ma'am.
Before Mark Hicks bought it, there was never a car from that Bridge Street parked on the street. Everybody parked, everybody got along, and it started. There is parking back there, and if they think there's not, they've got the land to fix the parking. That's your ordinance. So many rooms, you got to have parking. I don't think grandfathering in makes a difference, but that's up to y'all. Do what you want to.
All right, council members, what's your wish here? What do you want to do?
Is there a motion? Was there a motion on the table?
There's no motion. I thought there was a motion to table it. Mr. McClung started that, I thought.
I motion to table it.
Second.
All right. Then get any other discussion on tabling this ordinance? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so moved. All right, our next item of business is ordinance opening up North Street. Get a motion to discuss.
So,
Motion. Second.
All right, Mr. McClung made the motion, Mr. Myers seconded. This is an ordinance opening up the lower portion of North Street where it intersects Benton Street. So, any discussion? Mr. McClung?
I'd like to make a motion that we sign this ordinance, the number, did we have the public hearing first? We were supposed to have that, weren't we?
No, it's not a vacation. It's opening a street.
Oh, we're just opening it, yeah.
Yeah.
I make a motion that we assign this ordinance, the number, and put this on its first reading.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? So moved.
Ordinance number 2352, an ordinance opening the lower portion of Norris Street below the hospital, whereas the street commonly referred to as Norris Street was closed below the hospital to where it intercepts Benton Street by ordinance number 1191 on November 29th, 1983. And whereas upon a petition and public hearing with no objection, the City Council of Eureka Springs voted to reopen the street, commonly referred to as North Street, from below the hospital to where it intercepts Benton Street without city maintenance. Now therefore be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Eureka Springs that Section 1, the lower portion of North Street, heretofore closed below the hospital, shall be reopened to where it intercepts Benton Street without city maintenance.
Mr. McClung?
I'd like to make a motion, we approve ordinance number 2352 on its first reading.
Second.
Second.
All right, Mr. McClung made the motion to approve ordinance 2352 at the first reading, and Mr. Myers seconded. Any further discussion? Mr. McClung?
Yeah, was it going to, now, are we talking about Benton Street down there
By Shorty used to be.
well, down below Shorty's old house, down there where Jack and everybody
Cross.
used to live?
It's from the hospital to where it intercepts with Benton Street.
Okay, Benton Street as we know it is.
But
But that's not, and it's no maintenance, I understand, but is that, didn't they just ask for just a small section of it up at the top of the hill?
actually the bottom of the hill.
Well, it's down the hill from, they were gonna access it from the top.
No,
Yes,
they are.
but that's already open. So Norris Street to the hospital is open.
Right.
They needed to open from the hospital down to the bottom.
Okay, well, I misunderstood. I didn't realize it was going, I thought it was just another section just down below what it is.
It is, it's not to Hines, it's to Benton. It's not Perrin, it's Norris.
He's not here. I don't know if there's sewer lines or anything that's in the way if somebody went, I mean, we don't maintain it. The property owner's gonna have to maintain it, but if they come in and wanna open that, drive on that street and there's utilities crossing it, what do we do?
Simon was here last meeting and he
Yeah,
didn't
he
have
talked
an
about
issue.
that. He addressed it,
But
though.
you can talk to him next
I
meeting.
think the only utility was a gas line, and I'm not sure where that was run across an easement or something that Gwen said.
Okay.
There's no water or sewer in the street. I mean,
If I'm not mistaken, I remember when they had those lots for sale down there. They're right down there at the bottom end of Norris. So we're talking about improving maybe 100 feet of Norris in order to
It's further
access
from up
those
there
lots.
down than 100 feet.
Yeah.
It's more than that, down to Benton Street.
No, from the bottom of Benton. I mean, from the bottom of Norris where it hits Benton, they want access to those lots that are on Norris Street right at the bottom of the hill.
I don't have that with me. I don't think that's the way it's presented.
do we have a map?
But anyway,
I gave it to him last meeting.
Well, I'm all for going ahead and passing it
yeah, so am I.
on this one.
Isn't it right there where they have that gate they close for the winter time?
Yes, that's where it starts. Right.
And that will cut off. So this is where it's closed, this from here. And they're reopening it because she has that property here. And this is Ben right here. So from here to here. You can see it. She has that. That's
okay.
where, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
You
I
see it
thought it
now?
was up here.
Yeah, no, it's way down here. So she has to get access from here. And this is closed.
Okay. She's not gonna use this access.
She's gonna use this, she can't use the other way because there's gas lines.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, as long as we got that covered. Okay, I'm good.
You know where it's at now?
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so Mr. McClung?
I'd like to suspend the rules and place ordinance number 2352 on its second reading by title only.
I'll second that.
Mr. McClung made the motion and Mr. Meyer seconded to suspend the rules and place it on the second reading. Any further discussion? All right, roll call.
Steve Holofield,
Yes.
Terry McClung,
Yes.
David Avenzino,
Yes.
Susan Gruning,
Yes.
Harry Meyer.
Yes.
Ordinance number 2352, an ordinance opening the lower portion of Norris Street below the hospital.
Mr. McClung?
I can make a motion that we approve ordinance number 2352 on its second reading.
I'll second.
Mr. McClung made the motion to approve it on second reading. And Mr. Meyer seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Susan Gruning,
Yes.
David Avenzino,
Yes.
Harry Meyer,
Yes.
Terry McClung,
Yes.
Steve Holofield.
Yes.
All right, that takes care of that until the next council meeting. Agenda setting. Gentlemen, what do y'all want to do about the Spring Street parking? Right now, we've got an ordinance to enforce.
I think we should continue enforcing the ordinance, but I would like to see, Ferguson, you can probably answer this, more input
Well, we
from
can have a
plan.
chairperson and
Yeah, whoever it may
here
be.
at the next meeting. All right. Mr. McClung?
And I ask that they research that parking back there. I think there may be more to it than what we're.
Well, I can tell you right
I
now,
promise right
the
here.
problem is that it's the width of the road. We had the fire marshal go back there, and if you have two full-size cars on both sides of the roads, you don't have enough room for a fire truck.
We never had a fire truck down there ever.
I'm just stating what the fire marshal said. You wanted to ask about the back of the road, and that's their comment.
But they can improve their parking because they do have the space, the real estate.
That's the comment right now from the fire marshal.
But how does that affect it?
You can't,
I mean-
if they park, they'll be parking in the city street, is what it amounts to. The parking spaces they have they don't have adequate room on their property to park.
They don't
Full-size
have-
cars. Now,
They
you can
don't.
put compact cars possibly, and then get a fire truck back there. But on the east side of the road, the cars would be sticking out into the street. So,
I'm a little familiar with back there. 257 has a parking lot back there. I don't know if they could build a parking lot like what 257 has, but when you look back on the grain of the hill and everything.
well, and we're getting into discussion, and we're really on the agenda. I'm just asking where we want to go on the agenda for next time. And if we want to suspend the rules and keep enforcing it or not enforcing the parking, keep issuing tickets to people, because that's basically what's going to be happening.
That's what's happening now. It's still
No,
in effect.
we've suspended issuing tickets, I believe. Chief? I mean, I'm getting off the agenda here a little bit, but to clarify.
We've suspended enforcing it once discussion started at council.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I'm basing this, we still want to suspend the issuing the tickets until we get this resolved.
I would say yes.
Fine. And put this on the agenda for the next time.
Yes.
All right.
Have we added the bed and breakfast thing to the agenda? Have the city attorney look into it and see if we have the ability to require them to either improve parking back there or start parking back there or shut down?
Well, that's a separate issue totally. I mean, we
Well, I
can,
want to put it on the agenda.
what do you want the city attorney to do?
Do research on the code and what we can enforce on bed and breakfasts and what we can't?
Well, no, that's a little broad. I mean, you're wanting to know more about non-conforming parking, illegal non-conforming uses. I mean, what we can enforce and what we can't is what's written in the code. I mean, I think the city attorney would agree pretty much with that.
True, but what can we do to change the code to make them conform to our CUP?
That's the point right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what do I name the agenda item?
City attorney's discussion on
Non-conforming.
parking and non-conforming.
Okay, that's,
We'll come up with something.
All right, anybody else? All right, if not, Mr. McClung, you want to start off with council comments?
I know you'll be bringing it up anyway, but I'm really looking forward to the Texas Playboys this Friday night. I'm a big fan of Western Swing. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Amazing
A lot of
they're
fun.
still alive.
I don't think it's Bob Wills' gang. I think they've been replaced.
Yeah. It's okay.
But it'll be good.
Ms. Myers?
Well, I'm a little upset because the entertainment district at Pike Mountain their boundary has been changed by them. The first time they had an entertainment district, they had a rope across there, so they had the whole thing closed in. It's different than a permanent entertainment district. I think the rule states something about having a rope or a fence or something, a perimeter. And it bugs me that all of a sudden the perimeter was ignored. I wasn't for these entertainment districts anyway, but this is one of the reasons. That's all.
Mr. Holyfield?
Well, I'm sure a lot of people have heard CAPC is going through another period of turmoil. You know, it's like a roller coaster ride, but I thought the ride was going pretty smooth there for quite a while, but now it's going up and down again. Our director was suspended with pay pending investigation. There's been some allegations made. Can't really discuss those. There will be a workshop on the direction of our advertising this Wednesday at 4 o'clock. And then there will be a general meeting at 6 o'clock following that. So we're hoping everything will get worked out and get back to normal business. That's it.
Mr. Alonsino?
I have nothing.
All right.
Don't forget Susan.
We got a couple, several
Mayor.
activities. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Graham. Hello,
I don't
hello.
have anything. Thank you, though.
I'm sorry. I'm looking at, all right.
Thank you, Steve.
My apologies.
David.
David, thank you, David.
You're welcome, you're welcome.
All right, we do have some activities, highlights coming up in Eureka for the next couple of weeks. As Mr. McClung mentioned, we got Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys playing this Friday, June 28th. That should be good. The auditorium is not quite sold out. I think the balcony is sold out, and the downstairs is getting close. So if you want tickets, you better go ahead and get them. Farmers Market and Equity Bank Independence Day Cookout is Thursday at the Community Center Farmers Market. The Jamboree at Leatherwood City Park on the 4th of July. Going to have fireworks again at night at dusk. We've got water games, local food and beer vendors, and it's free admission, and everybody's welcome. And then they had Thunder on the Mountain Mustang Show at Pine Mountain Village on the 6th of July from 8 to 3, and the Mustang Parade is also Saturday, July 6th at 4 p.m. And then Drumming in the Park is Saturday, July 6th from 6 to 8 in the Basin Park. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you.